How's everyone doing today? I hope pretty well. So, before we talk about theology, punishment, or any type of belief systems, I want to start somewhere that's a little more grounded on today's episode. Free will is not just a religious idea. It is something that has been studied seriously for many years through neuroscience and philosophy and even physics. Many researchers have spent decades examining how decisions are made in the brain, how choices form before we're consciously aware of them, and even how biological systems can generate behavior without invoking anything supernatural. So, in other words, what I'm saying is we don't need a God to begin understanding the essence of free will. We already study it. Neurological research shows that decisions emerge from brain activity, not some divine intervention. I'm thinking here, guys, so bear with me. Brain imaging consistently shows that the process of choosing or making a decision actually begins milliseconds or even seconds before a person becomes consciously aware of even making a choice. Now, does that mean that humans are robots? I don't think so. But most religious people will throw that in there and say that, by this definition, it seems like free will is making us seem like robots. But I like to challenge that. Of course, I like to challenge and question everything. Of course, you guys know that. I think it means free will, for whatever it is, operates within natural systems like our brains and so I mean there's many examples I can go into, but I don't want to get too far fetched. And before I get off topic, I want to say that even studying free will under physics tells us something similar to what we see in neurology. And my thought on that is, at a fundamental level, reality follows certain patterns and constraints. Whether if the universe is deterministic or somewhere in between, or whatever you want to call it, to me, there's just no evidence that choices require a supernatural source to exist. I mean, many complex systems can produce meaningful behavior without some cosmic supernatural supervision. So when I talk about free will today, I am not talking about a mystical I guess you can call it a gift. But so I'm not talking about a mystical gift that can be handed down by a deity, as some people say. What I'm going to be talking about is about decision making as it actually functions in the real world. Because if free will is a natural process, then it should be discussed honestly without your supernatural threats and fear or metaphysics or whatever you want to call the attributes of your God and what it means to you. Honestly, I feel like when you do that, it actually brings the understanding of free will to a contradiction. And the reason I say that is because many religious doctrines claim that free will is sacred. They tell us that belief must be chosen freely. And they tell us that love only matters if it's voluntarily. But then they also attach some type of punishment when you choose incorrectly. And to me, I believe that's where the problem starts to begin. Because once a punishment enters the picture, we are no longer talking about free will as it is studied by neuroscience or the way it's even understood through human experience. So think about that, guys. What we are talking about free will as some type of compliance under a threat when we start associating it with religion and tradition. And from the way we understand it from neuroscience, those are not the same thing. So let's get into it. I'm CJ Everson, and welcome to The Jewish Skeptic. I'm gonna start taking smoke breaks on y'all. No, I'm joking. Ha ha, laugh. Okay. So in everyday life, we understand what a free choice looks like, what it feels like, and etc. A free choice is one where you can say yes or no without being threatened. If I ask you to agree with me and you know nothing bad will happen if you refuse, that is a free choice. But if I say you are free to disagree, and then I tell you there will be serious consequences if you do disagree with me, then don't you think that freedom tends to disappear? The choice still exists on paper logically, but it no longer exists in reality. And let me go and let me back up and say this. I believe fear changes behavior, and threats change behavior. And with those two being said, whenever you think that some type of punishment is involved, that mentally, as a punishment that you're thinking of, can actually change your behavior as well. So when I talk about free will, I have to be honest about what makes choice free and what makes it forced. Y'all might not agree with this, but to me, freedom does not mean you technically could choose otherwise. Freedom means you can choose otherwise without being harmed. Once you attach harm, the choice becomes more like a survival instinct, or what I'm saying is, once you place harm into making a choice that you think that you're free on, it becomes more of a survival behavior to me. And I want y'all to think about that. And with that being said, and what you guys thinking, let's talk about moral choice. So, moral choice only has meaning when refusal is allowed. Do you guys agree with that? I look at it like this. If you help someone because you want to, that has moral value. If you help someone because you're afraid of punishment, that value disappears. And ultimately, you're not choosing to be good. You're just choosing to do the good to avoid being harmed. Now, I think that clarity matters because many religious systems claim that belief, obedience, and worship and praise are moral acts. But if disbelief is punished, then belief becomes a safety strategy. Think about it. It becomes, and I'm speaking from my perspective, guys, it becomes something you do to protect yourself ultimately. And that kind of belief it ain't free. How is it free? I logically want you guys to think about what I'm saying. When we start thinking about certain things, love can't be forced. Trust can't be threatened into existence. Your morality So, with you are free, but, yeah, you know, but you can't do this, you can't do that. I think that this is a phrase that appears in many discussions. You are free, but you are free, but you must choose correctly. You are free, but there will be consequences if you make the wrong choice. You're free, but the stakes are eternal at this point. And the moment but enters the subject, freedom begins to deteriorate and dissolve to me. And I'll tell you why, because freedom that only exists under conditions is not freedom or free will at all. It is more of permission to me. And permission can always be revoked. True freedom does not need threats to enforce it. And I take these little pause breaks because I'm thinking. I really like for my viewers to be on the same page as me. That's why I try to slow this down. Some people have said that, oh, you're talking too slow, but some people actually love it because they can grasp the context of the conversation. So I want to spread this out a little bit because, now that I was talking about how true freedom doesn't need to be threatened in order to enforce it, I want to talk about how people often compare divine punishment to parental discipline. They say a loving parent teaches a loving parent punishes a child to teach them. But I think I can break that comparison down real quick. And here's how. A healthy parent does not punish a child forever. A healthy parent does not threaten infinite suffering for finite mistakes. A healthy parent explains, guides, protects. If a human parent behaved the way some doctors describe divine punishment, y'all know we would not call that love. And calling it holy does not change its structure. Now, just think about that. Before you get in your feelings, think about what I just said. Slow it down and process it. So let's talk about choice under foreknowledge. Because there is another issue that complicates this understanding of free will even further. If a deity already knows every choice you will ever make, then your future is already fixed. I want to make sure I touch on this. It's already fixed. So what are you changing? You praying is not going to change anything if that's what your God wants. You may feel like you're choosing freely, but the outcome is already known by your God. If punishment is assigned based on choices that are foreknown and unavoidable, then responsibility becomes questionable. Punishing someone for acting exactly as they were is always going to act, or always going to act, does not preserve justice. And let me back up and say that again so y'all can understand what I'm saying. Punishing someone for acting exactly as they were, always going to act, does not preserve justice. It kind of undermines it to me. So, these fear-based systems, religions, that's the number one culprit. Why do they even persist? Let's think about that. So, why do these ideas survive, especially this long? And I think it's because we know fear works. Fear keeps people loyal. Fear discourages doubt. Fear makes people afraid to die and leave. A system that claims freedom while punishing deviation is very effective at maintaining control. It offers safety on the condition of obedience. Now, do y'all think that's by accident? I don't think it's accidental. I think it's more functional. And that's why religion uses fear. They use it to control the masses. And y'all can call me crazy. I've been called worse. I'm not going to get into that, but one of the most harmful effects of this whole system is how it places blame on the individual. If you suffer, it is because you chose to do something wrong. And if you doubt, it is because you are weak. And if you leave, the consequences are your fault. Why is the system never questioned? It seems like only the person is questioned. This creates guilt, fear, self-doubt, and many other things I can think of. And it keeps people trapped in beliefs they no longer truly hold. That's why I be talking about freedom so much. But I'm not going to go off on that tangent. I'm going to keep this professional. Don't want to get canceled on YouTube. I've already been warned one time. So, still ain't going to stop me from telling the truth, though. So, I know we covered a lot, and I was hoping I wasn't going too fast. But let's backtrack and let's simplify everything that I've actually said on the episode today. So, free will requires the ability to refuse without harm. That's the first thing. Punishment removes that ability. External punishment removes it completely. Just, whew. Therefore, a doctrine that punishes choice cannot honestly claim to defend free will. It redefines freedom with a completely different definition that's under obedience to me. And I want y'all to think about that, because I said it earlier, but really think about that. If a doctrine punishes you for choice, how can you honestly claim that it's free will? The doctrine's definition has been redefined of what freedom is. And freedom actually has another definition: obedience. Ding. I like to always say this too. You don't need to be angry when you watch this. And you don't need to reject belief to understand it. You only need to be honest about what words actually mean. And if choosing wrong or wrongly results in a punishment, it's like I just said before, then the choice is not free. And if freedom only exists when you agree, then it was never freedom to begin with. Questioning the true definition of free will does not make you a rebellious person. Like I say in all my other episodes, it just means that you're thoughtful and you're thinking carefully. That's it. And I'll add this: thinking carefully is not a threat. It's how the truth is always tested. So, think about it. Let's talk about it in the comments. And I know this was a short episode, but I purposely kept it short on purpose. I don't want to get too far-fetched, because speaking on free will can go a long time. And I plan to bring a guest on the podcast to actually have a detailed conversation about free will. So until next time, I'm CJ Everson, and I'm also the Jewish Skeptic. See you next time.
Do you know what I found? The more you know, the less you know.